how are you doing? Welcome back to Dear Jesus. If you have been following, I've been doing a series sharing lessons from my latest book, 40 Lessons at 40. 40 Lessons at 40. Have you grabbed your copy? If you have not grabbed your copy, please do so. It's available on Amazon. Thank you for joining me. Today, we will be looking at lesson number 5. Can you see it? Lesson number 5. And I must say, lesson number 5, God's will isn't always pleasant. Or how I like to put it, are you sure about God's will? Are you sure you want God's will? Now, you know that as Christians, one of the common things that we always say is, oh, let God's will be done. Lord, we even pray, let your will be done in my life. There's even songs that says, oh Lord, please let your will be done in my life. But are you sure about God's will? Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure you want God's will to be done in your life? As usual, I would read excerpts from the book and then I'll just flow as we go. So here goes. As Christians, we are always quick to say, let God's will be done in my life. We even sing songs on bended knees with contrite hearts, pleading and appealing to God to let his will be done in our lives. But my question is, are you really sure you want God's will to be done in your life? Are you really sure about God's will? Are you ready? Are you ready for God's will to be done in your life? Isn't it a wonder that for some unwritten, unspoken, and assumed reason, God's will automatically translate to one of the following: wealth, fame, influence, affluence, popularity, and everything positive. All within our comfort zone. If it isn't any of the above, then we spend our days and nights casting and binding. The redefinition of God's will has now somehow caused many Christians to become depressed. It seems, for example, that if a woman is only, and I put that only in quotes, if she's only a housewife tending to her children, God forbid, that cannot be God's will for her life. Oh no, she's only being lazy. She cannot fend for herself. Oh, God forbid that be God's will for her life. But what if it is? Hello? What if that is God's will for her life? God has created each and every one of us for a purpose. So what if her will, God's will for her life, is to be a housewife? Okay, hold that thought. I am not in any way condoning laziness or belittling ambition or the quest to make money, and loads of it. But my point is, what drives us to do the things we do? What drives us to do the things we do? Is it the fulfillment of purpose or the greed to garner wealth to fund a certain lifestyle? I have learned that God's will is not always what we want or the world's definition of success. I think that is even a story for another day. What is the definition? Who defines success? Who says, who gives us the true definition of success? Who should? Is it according to the status of what the world defines success as? Having a car, having a house, living an affluent life, living, doing, what exactly is success to you? What is success to God? This is what I see. God is the master planner. My brother and my sister, hello, newsflash, if you did not already know, we are nothing but pencil. Let me repeat it again. We are nothing but pencil in the hands of the Creator. Yes. Remember the story of the rich fool? When we think he's got his life figured out, he's got a lot of money. Oh, tomorrow I'm going to do this. And what did God say? God said, look at that fool. This night your life is going to be required of you. We do not own our lives. It is grim. It is very grim, but it's the reality. We do not own our lives. We cannot even for one split second think that we own our lives. Well, is it not funny how we carry on? Yes, we carry on like we own our lives. We carry on like we've got it all. We make our plans. We say, I want to do this. Mufe kole, mufe mole, mufe. We want to do so many things. And a lot of times, we do not even go to the master planner to ask him, is this your will for my life? We make decisions, we jump into things, and then we find ourselves, and when we are stuck, we run to God. But God is the master planner. And as Mike Adenuga put it, we are nothing but pencil in the hands of the Creator. We have all been called to fit into different parts of that picture. God is the master planner. He sees the big picture, and we have all been called to be part of that big picture. And the best thing that could ever happen to us is to know and acknowledge God's will for us. Like literally, that's the best thing that can happen. Imagine how it is when you understand, you will stay in your lane. And we'll look at examples from the Bible. We can then be secure and confident in His will, no matter how miniature or underwhelming it might seem to be to the rest of the world. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 12 to 17. And it talks about the different parts of the body. How, the body of Christ, and he uses the analogy of like the human body. The eyes cannot say, oh, because I am not the mouth, then I'm not important. Or, oh, because I am not the legs, I'm not important. Every single, even in fact, this is my face. I say, I'm looking at my face. Every part of my face, even my eyebrows, even my eyelashes cannot say, oh, because I'm not the cocoa eye, then I am not important. Because without my eyelashes, my eyes will get damaged. The lashes are protecting my eyes. The brows are giving my face a certain shape. Without my mouth, my eyes will just be, imagine if I will not even be here speaking to you. So every single part of the body is important. That is just how every single person that God has created is important. So do not say, for example, oh, if you belong to a local church and you say, oh, because I'm in the prayer department, I'm not seen, then I'm not important. Or because I'm one of the sanctuary keepers, because I sweep the church. Every single part is equally important because it's a functional part of the body. And without that part, the body is not complete. So even if your role is not an in-front production role, it does not mean that you are not important. So it is even in life, in the grand scheme of things. God has created every single one of us in our different spheres, in our different areas, in our different fields, everybody cannot be a doctor. Even if you work in a hospital trust, everybody cannot be a doctor. The person working in the canteen is equally important because without them, the doctors will be hungry all day. They need to serve food, or patients will be hungry all day. The cleaners, without the cleaners, the trust will be stinking. So every single element is absolutely important. I am amazed at how comfortable our brother. So now I'm looking at examples in the Bible. Remember John the Baptist? Yes, I am amazed how our brother John in the Bible was very comfortable in his skin and in his purpose. He knew his place in God's big picture, understood his purpose, and embraced it wholeheartedly. So much so that when the Jewish leaders sent priests and temple assistants from Jerusalem to ask John, and I quote from John chapter 1 verse 19, they asked him, they said, "Who are you?" He came right out and said, "I am not the Messiah." "Well then, who are you?" they asked. "Are you Elijah?" "No," he replied. "Are you the prophet we're expecting?" "No." "Then who are you? We need an answer for those who sent us. What do you have to say about yourself?" And look at Brother John's answer. John replied in the words of the prophet Isaiah, "I am a voice shouting in the wilderness, clear the way for the Lord's coming." Now, if you read further in that chapter, you can sense the glee in his voice when he saw Jesus. He shouted, "Look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world." Now, it is God's desire that we embrace the path that he has laid out for each and every one of us and stay confidently on it. John was a typical example. Even when John's disciples, as documented in chapter 3 from verse 26, wanted to plant seeds of jealousy between him and Jesus, they said, Rabbi, the man you met on the other side of the Jordan River, the one you identified as the Messiah, is also baptizing people, and everybody is going to him instead of coming to us. Now, what were his disciples trying to do here? John's disciples, they were trying to cause dispute between Jesus and John. But look at John's response. In verse 27, John said to them, no one can receive anything unless God gives it from heaven. You yourselves know how plainly I told you, I am not the Messiah. I am only here to prepare the way for him. It is the bridegroom who married the bride, and the bridegroom's friend is simply glad to stand with him and hear his vows. Therefore, I am filled with joy at his success. He must become greater and greater, and I must become less and less. Oh my God. Do we have that today? Do we have that today? In the church, between friendships, in families, do we have that today? People who are confident in their position and they are happy to cheer others on, understanding where they are and happy that other people are the way they are. That's who John was. John was so happy. He knew his place. He was confident in who he was, in his position. He understood his place in the bigger picture. And even when his disciples were trying to cause, dispute and sow seeds of hatred between him and Jesus, he set them straight. And I carry on reading. Sorry. Each time I read this, I'm so excited. Wow! What humility! What audacity! What confidence! Sometimes I wonder and I ponder if John knew how he would later be imprisoned and how he would die. How many of us in his shoes would celebrate Jesus as he did? Especially when it seemed Jesus was taking his shine. He knew his place, respected his part in God's process, and lived joyfully with great satisfaction in Jesus' success. He played his part and exited humbly when it was time to go. John at no point compared himself to Jesus or felt the need to outshine him or feel threatened by him. Why was that? Because John understood that in the grand scheme of things, his own definition of success or living a successful life was to die. That was his own definition. That was John's own definition. It was to die. It was to be a voice crying out in the wind, in the wilderness, to prepare the way for the Messiah. And when the Messiah came, he realized that this was not somebody that I need to compete with. This have done my path. He is doing his path. I ask again, are you sure you want God's will to be done in your life? Even when it is not all roses and bliss? Let me give you a minute to think about that. You may be going through stuff right now. Things may really be hard. And you keep asking and you're casting and binding and you're praying. Have you sat down for a moment to ask yourself, maybe this is part of my journey. Maybe this is part of the process that God has called me to walk in life. Maybe this is part of the path that I have been called to walk in life. Have you asked yourself that question? I recently saw a documentary on the life of Gladis A Word, which brought home this nudging to buttress this reflection. I didn't quite know how to pass the message across, but clarity came after I watched the documentary. I was fascinated, yet compelled at how quick and resolute young Gladys was the moment she had an encounter with God coincidentally. For more about her journey, you can search Chinese Whispers. So the documentary is titled Chinese Whispers, and this is the story of a woman who left everything. And when you talk about core missionary work, she left everything. Now, she gave her life to Christ. She immediately became consumed with the desire to go to China to tell people about Jesus. It became her life purpose, and she did great wonders for God indeed, raising young children who were abandoned and bringing many to Christ. She recognized her purpose. She suffered in her journey. It didn't involve private jets and cozy hotel rooms. She spent all that she had just to get there. She risked her life, yet One can infer from her biography she was passionate about missions. She gave it her all. She recognized that this world isn't home. So she understood her purpose. She understood why she was here. She left her very comfortable home. I think she was from America, or just Google Chinese whispers and you get more information. And she went to China. She went to a different culture, and she lived among those people. Now, moving on, I had a conversation with someone a while back, and I learned a very important lesson I would like to share. The conversation began with the urgency of witnessing to non-believers, then the role of women and the many hats we wear. Reference was made to a lady who was able to achieve so much, and she raised her children who turned out to be, who served well in the service of God. And the person believed that as a child, so the person I was having a conversation, the person I was having a conversation with, believed that as a child of God, they were thinking and they were like, oh, I don't think I've really achieved, much for God. They went ahead to refer to great men of God who had performed wonderful miracles and signs and were all known. They were known all over the world. It appeared that from that mindset, one only did great things for God by being known all over the world. So basically what this is talking about, so I remember I had this conversation with this person and we were talking, and this person's idea of doing great things for God was when you have that popularity, when the whole world knows you. But that is not the point. You can be a woman just like this woman that raised a lot of children. Her children became great men of God, but she was just a housewife. She was just a housewife. We have many examples of people in the Bible whose roles weren't major or glamorous, but they were all part of God's plan. An example, and this is another mind-boggling example in the Bible, is the blind man in John chapter 9. Jesus' disciples asked him, whose sin caused the man to be born blind? Jesus responded, and I quote in verse 3, John chapter 9, verse 3. This happened so the power of God could be seen in him. Can you just imagine? A man was born blind just for God's power to be seen. Imagine how many prayers his parents would have prayed. But the purpose of this man's blindness was for God to be seen, for this moment, for this purpose, for God's glory. Some of us need to realize that the different or difficult path that we find ourselves just be part of the plan, like I said earlier on. That difficult path that you find yourself on, that difficult phase that you are going through, might just be part of your journey. The issues we have, prayers not answers, could be part of the plan. That is why it is important to know and accept his will, because that way we can stay focused on him. Another rather controversial one is our brother Judas Iscariot. Someone had to betray Jesus, right? Think about it. Someone had to do the dirty job. Someone had to do that horrible evil job. And alas, it was Judas. That was his identity. That was his destiny. His part in God's picture. There needed to be a betrayal for our redemption to happen. And that was God's design. I know, it's a very bitter pill to swallow. Absolutely. Like, we don't want to be the villain. We don't want to go through tough times. We want everything to be rosy. But what if your difficulties are part of God's will? Are you sure you want God's will to be done in your life? We all want the good things of life. We always want smooth sailing. But we must remember that this world is not our own. And if we claim to be completely sold out to Jesus, we must be ready to take up our cross, however unpleasant or unpalatable, and follow Jesus. It was Jesus that said it. He said, if you want to be my disciples, you have to daily take up your cross and follow me. As we continue to walk in his promises and ask for his will to be done in our lives, let us always remember, in the end, God is sovereign. Psalm 115 verse 3, our God is in heaven and he does whatever he pleases. So, my dear brothers and sisters, we are nothing but pencil in his hands. Always call yourself back. When you get carried away, I'm not saying that we should not plan. Even the Bible tells us in the book of Proverbs, a man plans his ways, but it is God that directs his paths and make them sure. So just whenever you get carried away by all your plans, some people have 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 15-year plan. Some people have 50-year plan. And again, please do not get me wrong. I'm not saying there's absolutely nothing wrong with planning. They say he who fails to plan, plans to what? Fail. But always remember, always remember that God has every single thing in his hands. He sees the big picture. You were created for a purpose. Except you are not a child of God and living a life of faith, you will know that this life that we have is not ours. It's not ours. We are nothing but pencil in his hands. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be grim. I don't mean to upset you, but I'm just telling you the stark truth and the stark reality. And I think the best thing for us to do for ourselves is to seek him and ask him for his will. Because when we recognize his will for our lives, then things become easier for us. When we recognize his will for our lives, then we are comfortable. No matter what it is that we go through, we know for sure that we are working according to his will. And his grace is always sufficient. He said he will not give us more than we can bear. So I want to encourage you, hold on, be strong, as long as you know that you're walking in his will. I mean, some things happen to us that are not part of his will for us because we are disobedient, because we're not listening, because we choose to do things our way. But as long as you know that you're walking according to his path, even when the road gets rocky, know that he's got your back. He's got it all in control. He's sovereign. He sees the big picture and he knows how important your role is. No matter how minute it might look, do not look down on yourself. No matter how unfulfilled you might feel right now, you are part of his plan. You are important to him. So I leave you again with this question. Are you sure about God's will? Are you sure you want God's will to be done in your life? Thank you so much for listening. I hope you were blessed and you found this useful. Please share, like, and subscribe to this channel. Till I come your way next time on or with another episode of Dear Jesus. The Lord bless you and see you later. Bye.